Okay, it's the brother Sorry back with another one. Um, Today I wanted to talk about um, a foundational method that anyone can practice for an observable benefit. I know the last video that I made, I was kind of going hard on the method, and the method is significant because the method is what makes you a scientist. The method is how you get duplicatable results. The method is how you make your theory conform to something that's um, functional versus just having an opinion. You know what I'm saying? Just like anybody, your opinion and your theory will be based on something substantial. So basically, what I want to kind of get into a foundational method that anybody can practice for observable benefit, like on the spiritual side. Anybody can do this. Real simple. Um, the practice of observing your first mind or your first instinct, however it may go, but your first mind. That's very important because usually the first mind is the most favorable outcome. When you kind of like how they say, you think long, you think wrong. So if you wait until you have that second inclination or whatever have you, normally that'll be the incorrect one. Typically, your first mind is you know um, it's akin to inspiration and everything like that. It gives you the correct direction and everything like that. It's often perceived as almost divine, right? Okay, so let's get into that. Give me 1 second. Y'all know I'm always quoting books. Y'all see it. Um, we're gonna get back into this remote viewing, the science and theory of non physical perception by Courtney Brown. I'm gonna just go into that a little bit. Make this video kind of short, but I'm gonna go into this um, remote viewing real quick to kind of give you an idea for why the first mind is such is a relevant thing. Now, I'm going to go into a little section out of this book. Now, what he talks about, he's going to talk about something called the subspace aspect of the mind. Okay, what he's talking about is, long story short, the part of the mind that has access to everything, the part of the mind that knows everything. And then he talks about a physical subspace connector and all that stuff like that. The membrane that separates the part of you that knows everything from the flesh and blood aspect, or the part of you that's more connected to the flesh and blood. So let's kind of get into this. Let's see here. Mm, all right, give me 1 second here. All right, I'm gonna skip around a little bit. This is page 7. It says, "It is easy to understand why many find it difficult to believe that remote viewing is a real phenomenon. Remote viewing relies on a level of perception that is quite alien to our normal means of perceiving the reality that surrounds us. Much of this perception has often been described as intuitive in nature. We were talking about in the last video. I was talking about the layman, the philosopher, the scientist, and the artist. How we talking about the artist is more intuitive in nature. You see what I'm saying? Um, we normally rely on our five senses for hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. Indeed, the five senses dominate our physical waking state of consciousness. So basically, what he's going to be getting into is how um, there there are various levels of the mind or whatever case may be, but how he separates the subtle perception that you get from something like your intuition versus the loud lights and sounds that you get from your five physical senses. So we get into that. um Okay, our understanding of the remote viewing process is now sufficiently advanced that we can use the human body, actually its nervous system, as a scientific mechanism or tool with which to conduct subspace experiments. I am convinced that we will one day develop machine-based technology that will greatly enhance our ability to conduct subspace experiments. But for now, the human nervous system is the most highly refined piece of hardware available to us. As it will become clear throughout this volume, our understanding of how to use this biological technology within scientific settings has developed to the point that we can conduct experiments with greater precision than ever before. Okay, keep going. It's page 29. Our subspace aspect. Okay, here we go. Our subspace aspect is our connector between the physical and subspace realms. This other part of the mind I'm telling you about, that anybody has access to. Okay, current remote viewing evidence suggests that the human subspace aspect is non-localized. That means it's not in the body. Okay, that is, it appears to be omnipresent everywhere at once. One does not leave one's body in a spiritual sense and fly to the different locations to describe a target. Rather, with remote viewing, one shifts one's attention from one location to another, just as a person would look with the eyes from one corner of the room to another without having to move one's body. But the remote viewing experience ultimately becomes a physical experience, since all that is perceived and reported must eventually end up as conscious thoughts, spoken or written words, and sketches. The subspace aspect must thus have some mechanism by which these perceptions interface with the physical brain based consciousness. Okay? Remote viewing evidence argues forcefully that the human subspace aspect focuses its awareness of the physical universe through five sensory channels of the human nervous system. It appears that the output strength of these five sensory channels with regards to the physical consciousness is strong relative to the ability of a person to perceive direct subspace information. That is, it is easier by far for a human to perceive information originating from the five senses than it is for a person to perceive subspace information. So this information, the same subspace information that we're talking about, or this same faint information that you get from your intuition, this is why it's so faint. This is why it's so faint. In other places in the book, he basically describes it. He likens it to, let's say, like a memory. Let's say, like I can be driving down the street or whatever the case may be, and having a memory, a flashback of the first time I rode a bike. I'm gonna see two pictures. I'm gonna see the road in front of me, and I'm gonna see a very faint picture of me riding a bike in a very faint, illusory type of um image and everything like that. That's kind of what he's talking about. That it's an aspect of that level of the mind, only more subtle or whatever. So when we talk about your first instinct or your first thought, how it's always the right thing to do and everything like that, but it's so faint. If you don't focus on it, or if you don't train yourself to catch it, you'll miss it. Okay, the nature of the physical subspace interface is not well understood, right? Science will eventually understand the interface as research continues in the years and decades that follow. Indeed, researchers such as Hameroff, Penrose, and others are already exploring areas of inquiry that may soon allow us to understand the nature of the interface on a molecular level. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down. On the level of perception, the physical subspace interface appears to act as a low bandwidth connector between the physical and subspace consciousness. There's a physical and a subspace consciousness. There's a you in your body that perceives this environment, and the brain cuts off this other communication with this higher level of self that knows everything. The subspace aspect of consciousness, what he's talking about in this book that I did not write. You see Courtney Brown. Okay, he's talking about the two aspects of consciousness, and he's talking about a buffer between them. He's talking about the system in which they transfer information. We're not necessarily talking about remote viewing. We're still talking about some of the stuff from True Master, um, but it still has the same level of weight, because this is a method like what we were talking about. His theory is conforming to a method, to the results of a method and everything like that. So that's how he arrives at it. So if somebody says, hey man, I only believe in what I see with only my five senses, yeah, that's because you don't have a method. If you had a method, then you could see something outside of your five senses, or you would be aware, even if it was on a mathematical level, that there's something outside of your five senses. So that's what I'm saying. That's the importance of a method. You can see things that your body, or the current state of your body, will not allow you to see. Okay, so on a level, let's see, we got it. Okay, on a level of perception, the physical subspace interface appears to act as a low bandwidth connector between the physical and subspace consciousness. So some may argue that the interface is more like a juggernaut than a helpful connection. Again, this is due to the low bandwidth characteristics of the interface. By low bandwidth, it is meant that the interface appears capable of transferring only small amounts of information in a given time, when compared with what is possible using the physical senses. So based on this other aspect of mind or whatever, it can only transfer little bits of information because we're not trained to receive it. That's another aspect of it, like training yourself to listen to your first mind. I'm not telling you you're gonna be walk around here like Professor Professor Xavier from the X-Men or nothing like that. But I'm saying we're talking about methods. This is one method just that anybody can do. Everybody has an experience of listening to their first mind. That's observable and that's duplicatable because that happens all the time or whatever. You run into all kind of situations where you have the opportunity or not to listen to your first mind. So this is a very duplicatable method that anybody can use, and you don't have to be the ultimate occultist to accomplish it. You can just be a regular Joe Schmo and listen to your first mind or practice listening to your first mind and gain some tangible benefit. Okay, so let's see here. Let me see. To explain, consider that information sent to the brain from either the physical subspace interface or the five senses arrive as signals, with the word used and analogically in the sense of a radio signal or any other constant flow of coded information that requires translation upon reception. There are two issues relating to the signal that are relevant here: amplitude versus quality. Experientially, remote viewers typically report that signals coming from the five senses feel like they are being received by physical consciousness, that is, the brain, at a much higher level of amplitude than those coming from the physical subspace interface. So these are more subtle, faint signals that you have to train yourself to pay attention to, or you have to employ certain methods to even get them, or even know they're there, or whatever case may be. Uh, Let me see here. Blah, 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 blah. It is unknown at this time whether amplitude is really the issue or whether the relative disparity in signal strength is due to something else, such as overall quantity of information. For example, if one tunes in a radio station with a radio receiver, the signal can be weak or strong depending on the distance between the receiver and the transmitter, as well as the power of the transmitter. But the quantity of information received, defined in terms of the number and variation of frequencies in the signal, is the same regardless of the strength of the signal. For the quantity of information to matter, the signal will have to be interrupted or suspended through some means. With regard to remote viewing, it is unknown whether the information that is received through the physical subspace interface is lacking in amplitude, that is signal strength, or information quantity, or perhaps both amplitude and quantity. It is likely that both amplitude and quantity differentials would be experienced similarly by remote viewers, and so they would not be able to tell the difference between the two. So that's kind of what I wanted to go into. In that book right there. So it kind of gives it a little bit more teeth when I say, um, um, your intuition and paying attention, because you actually gotta like train yourself. It took me years to even kind of grasp it. I'm not even saying that I'm, perfect at every time I just listen to my first mind, but I catch it more often than not now after years of trying to train it. Okay, last thing. It was something else that we were speaking about when we were talking about the material from True Master. I want to give another method that anybody can do to kind of like, I don't know, kind of see some type of result or something like that. It's not anything extraordinary. It's something basic. You've heard of it before, but just maybe since we kind of went over a lot of that, some of that material from the, Courtney Brown's literature, maybe it'll kind of like resonate differently or whatever case may be. So when we address the idea of true master as a perspective, and the idea of living inside of your mind by assuming the several conditions that make the experiential work, namely everything that you give your attention to being a symbol, everything that repeats being a pattern, and principles being the governing intangible forces behind symbols and patterns. Okay, so this turns our outer environment into a mirror of our subconscious landscape, where literally everything is interpretable. So a that's a method within the experiential and true master, making your whole environment basically interpretable. And like I said, sometimes that may be overwhelming, and that might be a big step, and that might be kind of weird for some people. So a more light aspect of this, a lighter, softer aspect of this, okay, is to I don't know how often, some of you may dream, but just writing down your dreams, keeping a dream journal. Dreams are these similar type of memories that we were talking about, that Courtney Brown was describing in his book. They're more illusory. They're not as concrete as your memories in your waking state or whatever the case may be. So writing your dreams down actually helps you remember them and actually helps you to build up this aspect of your memory. If I'm not mistaken, I think Robert Bruce talks about that in his book on astral projection, astrodynamics. I mean, he wrote that decades ago, but I mean, he alludes to that as well. Um, Writing down your dreams. When you write them down, okay, get a dream interpretation book. Interpret some of your dreams. Now, some of the symbolism may be a hit and a miss in certain scenarios, but get in the habit of understanding that all of that is interpretable. All of those are symbols of your mind. So, get a habit of, you know, taking a step one, write down my dreams. Step two, interpret my dreams or whatever the case may be. And then, if you really want to get funky with it, you know, try to practice waking up in your dream. You see what I'm saying? Pinching yourself every now and then or doing like little checks to see if you're dreaming or you're awake and stuff like that. Practice, see if you can have a lucid dream. And that's stuff that anybody can do. Anybody, if you have dreams, some of us, don't have dreams, however it may go, or dream seldomly, however it may go, but you can still kind of, use these as actual methods and you don't have to be the ultimate freaking spiritual guru to do this. It's just stuff that anybody can do, but you can still gain some measure of benefit. It'll help you learn more about yourself, and it'll help you kind of like, I don't know, practice some of these methods like we were talking about a little bit earlier. If y'all like what y'all hearing, like, subscribe. Always a pleasure. Appreciate y'all for checking me out. Peace.